Good Sunday morning. I'm Hugh Keaton.
And I'm Bill Schneider. Welcome again to WLOX News this week.
Wednesday, Mississippi is set to execute Richard Gerald Jordan, who has been on death row at Parchman since the 1970s for kidnapping and killing Edwina Martyr, a Gulfport banker's wife.
Jordan kidnapped Martyr from her home in Gulfport and later shot her in a wooded area in Harrison County.
Here to talk about the case and being witnesses to other executions at Parchman, former WLOX News This Week host and WLOX multimedia journalist Doug Walker, and former WLOX court reporter Marcia Hill, who covered some of the legal maneuvers in this Jordan case many years ago now. And welcome both back to WLOX.
Glad to be here.
First of all, let's get into this case. It's kind of a strange case in that he was originally sentenced to death, but then the sentence got changed to life imprisonment, went back to a death sentence. It's gone back several times, and now 49 years later, he is set to die after the crime was committed. Marcia, what do you remember about the case through the years?
I was in school, but, and so was Doug. We were both in school, but you know, over the years, it continued to make news because of how many times he was back and forth in court. You know, inmates don't have anything but time on their hands, and they're coming up with all kinds of issues that they can appeal through the various courts. And that's exactly what Richard Gerald Jordan has done for 49 years. It's hard to believe that somebody has sat on death row for 49 years.
And this is a classic example of justice delayed is justice denied. It's a joke, it's a travesty that someone sits on death row for 49 years. The victim has suffered, the family continues to suffer. We need to either fix the system, make it so it was what it is intended to be, a deterrent, so if you do some horrible violent crime, you're dead within 2 years, or do away with it, but fix it one way or the other.
Yeah, because this stuff goes back and forth. It's going back and forth now in 2025, just like it did back when, like you said, when this case was getting going, and it's like nothing's changed really.
Well, his issues have all been ruled on by the various courts, and so he's been court shopping, as they often do, and he's out of issues. So he's come up with the one that we've been hearing a lot in the last couple of years from death row inmates around the country, that they're fighting the lethal injection, the solution. And supposedly it's faulty. It doesn't. It has complications. It's cruel and inhumane. That's what he's counting on from Judge Wingate.
And why not fight it a decade ago? Because this three-cocktail drug has been being used in Mississippi for the past decade. If you're going to fight it 10 years ago. Don't wait until the last minute. That's what drags these things on ad nauseum.
And we are recording this on Friday. You're seeing it on Sunday morning, so we could get a ruling about this over the weekend. We're still waiting on that ruling, and it's also requested clemency from the governor, potentially. The execution is still set to go on Wednesday. But if executed, he would be the oldest person on record executed in the state of Mississippi since it was legalized again, ironically, in 1976 when he was originally put on death row.
Right.
If, let's say, one of his other arguments, not just the lethal injection, but the whole, hey, why can't I just have life in prison? And there's a lot of people, we saw a few people talking about that, hey, thou shalt not kill, that type of thing. But like you said, Doug, that's not a deterrent, or is it? You know,
no, it's not a deterrent, and that's what he's got. He's got life in prison. He's spent an entire life there. He's 79 years old. He could die tomorrow from natural causes. So he got what he wanted, life in prison without parole.
And we brought you both in here. Another reason we brought you in for your look at the case, but also you had both been witnesses to executions through the years. I'll start with you, Marcia. Just what was that experience like? When was it, first of all?
1983, I believe, is when Tracy Ellen Hansen killed State Trooper.
Yes,
Bruce
the state
Ladner.
trooper, yeah.
And
that stretch of 49 is named after him.
Yes, it is. And it wasn't until 2002, in July, I believe, that he was executed. So it was almost 20 years later. His death, and I know there's lots of arguments from both sides of the capital punishment debate that it's cruel and it's inhumane. I will tell anyone, based on my personal experience, on what I saw when he was put to death, it was not cruel and inhumane. He died a very painless death, much more painless than the death that he caused to that state trooper. Bruce Ladner was shot in the shoulder. He shot him in the shoulder, he disarmed him, and then, you know, instead of just leaving, he shot that trooper again in the back, and it shattered his liver. And I remember it must have happened on a Friday because I was working in the newsroom that whole weekend, and our entire newscasts were dominated by what was going on with him. He was in and out of surgery as they were desperately trying to save him, but it was just too far gone, and he died. And that execution was not cruel and inhumane.
Well, I couldn't agree
Yeah.
with you more. The one I did was with William Mitchell, and it was very clinical, very antiseptic, very quiet. It was almost like watching a medical procedure. They put the IVs in, you see him breathe, you see his breathing become a little more shallower, and then it just stops, and it's over. And all I could think about when I was watching Mitchell die was the victim, Patty Milliken. He kidnapped her, beat her, raped her, strangled her, left her for dead, and to seal the deal, he ran her over with a car several times. And all I could think of is, here's this guy dying a very peaceful death. Imagine the horror, the excruciating pain that Patty Milliken went through, and that's all that was going through my mind.
And they can ask for a sedative before the final injection. I don't remember if Hansen did, but his lawyers were there with him, and they were more upset. He was very calm. It was like he was just waiting. And like I said, I don't remember if he asked for a sedative, but what I do remember was when they injected him, a few minutes later, he was gone. He went to sleep, and he was gone.
And you don't hear anything. The mics, there is no audio except at the very beginning where they offer the inmate a chance to speak some last words. In my case, Mitchell chose not to. The mic goes off, there's no audio, and all you see is visual. You don't see the family because they're kept in a separate witness room. And then our job was, Marcia and I both, was to go out to other members of the media and report, as a pool reporter, what we saw and how people reacted.
When you're in there, as you said, it was antiseptic for both of your experiences. So, Marcia, you were a pretty young reporter. What year did you do that, Doug?
I was not a young reporter.
Someday you were. No, but when was that?
Oh, that was probably about 12 years ago or so.
Okay.
So I had been here for quite some time, so I wasn't shocked by what I saw. I don't think anybody was. It was just so medical. It just wasn't.
Same with you, Marcia?
Well, it
wasn't.
was,
Were
and-
you thinking before, hey, this could be rough, that kind of thing?
Well, I didn't know what to expect. I know, but then once I saw it, and when we went out to the news conference, which you agreed to do after you witnessed an execution, and one of the reporters asked me, frankly, I told them that I thought it was very sterile, and I thought about what it was like in watching a vet put my dogs down.
Wow.
And it was very peaceful
to it,
and similar to it. And I cried over the vet putting my dogs down, but Hansen just went and he was gone. And I don't see where he could have had any pain.
And there's not a lot of emotion.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
When I was up there at Parchman, going to and from, there were a handful of anti-death penalty protesters. Very peaceful, weren't getting out of line or anything like that, but there was maybe, you could count on one hand how many of those protesters were. So the whole process from entering Parchman to leaving Parchman was very quiet and, for lack of a better word, efficient.
Yeah, okay. Well, good insight there
Yeah.
from Marcia Hill and Doug Walker both. Thanks for joining us. And we will have a crew going to Parchman if the
Who knows
execution
what's gonna
goes
happen
forward
with that, yeah.
this week. All